Welcome to the Inventory Fundamentals video for BridalLive. Inventory is comprised of three things: your items, which are the things that you sell to customers; vendors, which are companies that you purchase products from; and departments, which are the classifications of the items that you have in the store, such as bridal gowns, bridesmaids' dresses, etc. Let's take a look at adding a vendor. First, I'm going to go to the Search Vendor screen so we can see a list of all of our existing vendors. Then I'm going to click on the Add Vendor button. This is going to show me the Add Vendor window where I can begin typing in the information that I know about the vendor. Use a vendor code that you can immediately recognize. For instance, a popular vendor in this industry is Casablanca. You might want to use CASA for the vendor code. The reason we use vendor code is that in various places in the application, you don't have all this room for, let's say, Essence of Australia to go on the screen or on a printout or something. So we give you a code so that you can immediately recognize this particular vendor, and even in reports, so that you can make better decisions. I can also enter in any notes that I'd like to add about this vendor. For instance, if their standard rush is 4 to 6 weeks, then you could put something like that in there. Or you could put a link to their website. Once I click on the Add button, I'll be taken to the Edit Vendor screen. From here, I can see all the information that I just entered, but I can also jump over to the Color Groups area where I can begin defining color groups about this vendor. Color groups allow you to set up lists of colors that your manufacturers use for the types of products that they sell. Many bridal gown manufacturers have the same colors that their dresses come in, so we can define those colors up front on the vendor screen, and then when your customer's placing an order for this product, you can simply select from a list of available colors. BridalLive also lets you track the size charts for your vendor. To add a size chart, just click on the Size Charts menu option, choose Add Size Chart, and you'll be asked for the name. Enter in a name like Bridal Gown Sizes, and now you can begin adding the sizes for this group. You can add sizes really quickly by typing the number and the Enter key right after it. If you'd like to specify bust, waist, and hips measurements for the size, feel free to do that in the available area. You can also assign an additional cost and an additional price to this size. This happens in many cases for an upsize charge. So maybe for an example, oversized 26, it's an extra $25 from your manufacturer, and you might charge the customer $50 for that. You can add both $25 in the cost and $50 in the price if that's how you do it. You can also sort these sizes. So if you make a mistake on one size and you need to delete it, you can just add another one in and move it up and down the list. The email section on the left will show you all the emails that you've sent to this vendor. If you're in the habit of emailing your purchase orders to the vendor, a history of all the emails that you have sent will show up in this emails area. Now let's go look at the departments. Departments, like we said earlier, are just classifications of the products that you sell. We've loaded a bunch in here for you by default, but feel free to edit or tweak any of these that you might feel is necessary. Now let's take a look at items. Items are the products that you sell through the point of sale module. The quickest way to learn about items is to just add one. So let's click Add Item and add the private label item to the system. Private labeling is when you'd like to show the customer one style number, but when ordering the product with your manufacturer, you'd like to refer to it as a different style number. BridalLive supports that through the use of the private label feature. So we'll just add an item here with style 123 and indicate that we want to private label it. When we do that, BridalLive will put the cursor right back in the style name field, and you can enter the private labeled style name that you'd like. Once you've done that, you can opt to enter a description into the item and track which department and vendor this item belongs to. For colors, we're going to go ahead and assign a color group that we predefined earlier. And we'll see that it's available from the drop-down. In the size, we'll go ahead and assign the predefined size group. And we'll see how those sizes are available as well. Next, let's take a look at item type. There are 4 different types of items. There's an inventory item, which is any tangible item that you have in the store. If you want BridalLive to manage the quantity on hand for that item, you will go ahead and mark it as an inventory item. Even if the item is a special order item, if you can physically touch that item before it leaves your store, that's when you'll typically use the inventory item setting. Non-inventory items are things like fees, maybe extra charges for things that your store adds on to orders, maybe an additional modification to the dress, anything that is intangible that you would add to an order. Then you have rentals, which is for tuxedo rentals, and then you also have services, which are things like alterations that you might offer. Next, you'd select the tax code. This would be whether or not the item is taxable and under what tax rate, and that's defined in the settings area. You can also specify the quantity on hand. The on-hand quantity field is used to track how many of this item you have in the store. In most cases, if you're a sample store, you're only going to have one of these dresses in the store. You might have 2, maybe you have one in a larger size. If that was the case, you would enter 2 items, each with a quantity on hand of 1 for those 2 different sizes. Because when customers called in or when you were looking through your inventory and you wanted to know how many of a particular style you had, you'd want to know that you had both a 12 and a 24 in the store. The same thing goes for prom dresses and any other bridesmaids products that you might carry. Next, you have retail price. But before we jump into that, let's look at inventory cost and order cost. Inventory cost is the actual cost to you when you first purchase this product. Then you have order cost, which represents today's cost to you for this particular item. Now, most of the time those 2 numbers are the same, but in some cases they can be different. For instance, maybe it's a carryover style, 2013 to 2014. And that carryover style, and when it was carried over, the labor costs in China went up, and now it costs an extra $25 to you to buy this dress. So you may have $300 in inventory cost and $325 needing to go in order cost. So now that you know the difference between order cost and inventory cost, let's look at how we would price the products in BridalLive. So you can always just type in a price that you might want to use, but you can also use the markup guide over here on the right. And if you're in the habit of pricing things at 3 times or at 3.5 times wholesale, or if you just have your own custom multiplier, you can enter it in and BridalLive will factor the price for you. The last 2 checkboxes on the screen, one is do not allow discounts. It's pretty self-explanatory. If you check that box on the point of sale, you won't be able to give discounts to this item. The other one is prompt to register when sold. This is typically used for the prom registry feature in BridalLive, but what happens is if you check that box on the point of sale screen, you'll get prompted with a window that asks you which school you would like to register this to. Many people like this feature because it keeps you from having to remember to register the prom dress. It just pops right up and you select the school and you're done. To add pictures to your inventory item, just click Add Pictures. Select the pictures that you would like and hit Open. BridalLive will upload these images to your account and show the image in other places in the system. You can change which image is used as the cover photo by just dragging them into place. By default, the cover photo will always be the first one in the list. You can also assign attributes to your items. Since this is a bridal gown, I'm going to go ahead and check that box. Now that we've covered adding and editing items, let's take a look at how we search for items in BridalLive. To do that, just click on Search Items and you'll be taken to the search screen. Here you can enter in all kinds of filter criteria to narrow down your items. Once you've narrowed down your items, you might want to take an action on those items. For instance, maybe you want to print labels. To do that, we just hit the checkbox to select all our items, or you can just select certain ones. And then we'll click on Bulk Actions, Print Labels, but let's not stop there. You can also do things like change the status of your items, change the tax code of your items, change the item type, change the prompt to register setting, the discount setting, and you can also even export it to Excel for further manipulation if you need to. The inventory smart filters allow you to look at your inventory in a slightly different way. Let's take a look. Under smart filters, you'll see that we can look for items at or below our reorder point. So if we're running low on something and we need to reorder it, this report will tell us. Items on hand. You can look at all the different items that BridalLive thinks you currently have in the store. You can also look at items that were recently added to your system. So if you want to audit who's adding items to the system, you can do it once a week or something like that. And this concludes the tutorial on inventory.